Karen kidnapped my wife over a legal pool swim, so we fought back hard. Watch the intense drama, like subscribe and hit the bell for our latest HOA battles, and justice wins. And I was enjoying a quiet Saturday morning in our backyard at Pinecrest Estates, the sun warming my skin as I lounged by our pool, when I heard a loud crash from the front of the house, a sound that made me, Nathan Brooks, jump up from my chair, my heart racing as I rushed to the street, my bare feet slapping against the pavement, and I stopped dead at the sight before me. Our mailbox smashed to pieces, tire tracks leading straight to a familiar car parked a few houses down. And I knew exactly who was behind it, because there she was, Karen Foster, the HOA president, stepping out of her vehicle, her heavy frame straining against a bright green blazer, her auburn hair tied back in a messy ponytail, a smug smile spreading across her face as she pretended to inspect her car, her double chin quivering slightly as she moved. And I marched over, my voice steady but firm. Karen, you just smashed our mailbox. This isn't an accident. What's your problem? And her smile widened, her tone dripping with condescension. Oh, Nathan, I'm so sorry. I must have swerved a bit. But you know, if your wife wasn't such a distraction, maybe I'd have been more careful. And I felt my fists clench, my heart pounding as I shot back. Don't bring Elise into this, Karen. This is the third time in a month you've targeted us. First the fake noise complaints, then the graffiti on our fence, now this. What's your real issue? And her eyes narrowed, her voice turning cold. My issue is that your wife doesn't belong here. Nathan, always flaunting herself. A model. Really. It's unbecoming for Pinecrest. And frankly, you two are bringing down the neighborhood standards with your presence. And there it was, the racism and jealousy I'd always sensed, now out in the open, her words a clear message. You don't belong here because you're a black man with a white wife. And I knew she'd been targeting us for months. Because we'd lived here for 3 years. A black tech consultant and a white former Special Forces operative turned professional model. Elise's beauty and success a constant thorn in Karen's side. And me, always feeling the whispers, the stares, the comments like, they don't fit in, despite our quiet life. And now Karen had escalated her petty vendetta to property damage. So I stepped closer, my voice low. You're not getting away with this, Karen. This is harassment. And I'll make sure everyone knows what you're really about. And her laugh was sharp, her jowls shaking as she retorted, good luck, Nathan. The HOA has the authority here, and I've got the community behind me. You're fighting a losing battle. And as she turned to waddle back to her car, I saw neighbors peeking out their windows, some with curiosity, others with smug approval. And I knew we were in for a fight, because this wasn't the first time Karen had targeted us. She'd started with fake noise complaints about our backyard BBQs, claiming Elise's music was too loud, then graffiti on our fence with slurs aimed at both of us. And now she'd smashed our mailbox. But what Karen didn't know was that Elise wasn't just a model. She was a retired Special Forces operative, a woman who'd faced worse than Karen in combat zones across the globe. And I wasn't about to let this slide. So I went back inside, my mind racing as I told Elise what had happened. Her blue eyes narrowing as she listened, her tone frame tensing as she stood in her workout gear, her voice calm but firm. Nathan, she's not just jealous, she's dangerous. We need to fight smart. Let's start by documenting everything, and I'll reach out to some old contacts. We'll get to the bottom of this. And I nodded, grateful for her strength, because I knew she was right. So we spent the day gathering evidence, taking photos of the smashed mailbox, pulling security footage that showed Karen's car swerving deliberately into it, her heavy frame unmistakable as she stepped out to inspect the damage with a smirk. And Elise made a few calls, her voice steady as she spoke to a friend in law enforcement. I need you to look into Karen Foster. She's targeting us. I think there's more to this. And as we worked, I felt a surge of determination, because I knew this was just the beginning, and I wasn't about to let Karen destroy our lives. So I posted the security footage online, the caption reading, HOA president smashes our mailbox, Pinecrest Estates, we need justice. And I watched as the post gained traction. Hundreds of likes. Comments like, this is outrageous. She's out of control, and support Nathan and Elise. End this harassment. Pouring in, and I knew we'd struck a nerve because the next day a reporter showed up at our door, her camera rolling as I spoke. I'm Nathan Brooks, and Karen Foster has been targeting me and my wife Elise because of her jealousy and racism. This isn't about standards. It's about hate, and we're not going anywhere. And I saw Karen watching from across the street, her heavy frame shifting uncomfortably as she glared at us. But I also saw neighbors starting to talk. The Garcias and Wilsons nodding in support. And I knew this was just the beginning, because I wasn't just fighting for our home. I was fighting for justice, for every family in Pinecrest who'd been made to feel less than, and I was going to make sure we won, no matter what Karen threw at us next. The smashed mailbox incident had set Pinecrest Estates abuzz, and I, Nathan Brooks, could feel the tension rising as Elise and I prepared to take on Karen Foster and her vendetta. But I knew her petty jealousy wouldn't stop there. Because the very next day, I found a new post on the neighborhood's online group, a scathing message from Karen accusing Elise of inappropriate behavior and disrupting community morals. Wishwatam, claiming she'd seen Elise parading around in revealing clothing during a photo shoot in our backyard. And I felt my blood boil as I read the comments. Some neighbors agreeing with Karen, one writing, she's always showing off, it's not right for Pinecrest. While others defended us, the Garcias replying, Elise is a professional model. Leave her alone. And I knew this was Karen's attempt to tarnish Elise's reputation. So I turned to Elise, who was scrolling through the post on her phone, her blue eyes narrowing with a mix of anger and amusement, her toned frame tensing as she stood in her workout gear, her voice calm but firm. Nathan, she's trying to ruin my career. This isn't just jealousy. She's escalating. We need to hit back harder. And I nodded, because I knew she was right. So we spent the morning gathering more evidence, pulling security footage from the photo shoot that showed Elise working professionally with a crew. Nothing inappropriate about it. Dressed in a stylish but modest outfit for the shoot, and I posted the footage online. The caption reading, Karen Foster lied about my wife. Elise is a professional model. This is harassment. And I watched as the post gained traction. Thousands of likes, comments like Karen's a liar, leave Elise alone, and support Nathan and Elise. This is disgusting. Pouring it. And I knew we'd struck a nerve because the next day a reporter showed up at our door, her camera rolling as Elise spoke, her voice steady. I'm Elise Brooks, a professional model. Karen Foster has been targeting me because of her jealousy. She's lying about my work to ruin my career. This isn't about morals. It's about hate. And I added, I'm Nathan Brooks, and Karen's been harassing us for months. This is racism and jealousy, and we're not backing down. And the story aired that evening. Pinecrest Estates HOA president accused of racism and harassment against model. The segment showing our footage, Karen's post, and our words echoing, and I watched as the public outrage grew. Social media lighting up with hashtag justice for Elise and hashtag stop Karen. Comments like, this is outrageous. She's targeting them for no reason. And Elise is stunning. Karen's just jealous. Pouring in, and I knew the pressure was mounting because the next day I saw neighbors gathering outside Karen's house, the Garcias and Wilsons leading a small protest, their signs reading stop the hate and Karen must go. And I joined them, my voice carrying over the crowd. Karen's been targeting us because of her jealousy and racism. We're fighting for a Pinecrest where everyone belongs. Who's with me? And the crowd cheered, their voices a chorus of defiance. But Karen wasn't done, because that afternoon she doubled down, filing a formal complaint with the HOA, accusing Elise of indecent exposure during her photo shoot and demanding a $5,000 fine. And I felt my jaw tighten, because this was a blatant lie. But I also knew we had the upper hand, so I called Aisha, our lawyer, my voice steady. Aisha, Karen's filed a complaint against Elise. She's accusing her of indecent exposure from the photo shoot, but we've got footage proving it's a lie. We need to counter this. And Aisha's tone was fierce. I'm on it. Nathan, I'll file a countersuit for defamation, harassment, and racial discrimination. And I've been digging into Karen's finances. I think she's hiding something. We'll get to the bottom of this. And I felt a surge of hope because I knew she was right. So I kept pushing, working with Elise to gather more evidence. And what we found was shocking because Elise's contact in law enforcement called back with a lead, his voice tense. Nathan, Karen's been in contact with a rival modeling agency, Starlight Media. They've been paying her to sabotage Elise's career. Wire transfers of $10,000 over the past 6 months. This is a coordinated attack. And I felt my heart race because this wasn't just jealousy, this was a calculated plot. So I told Elise, we've got her. Starlight Media paid her to ruin you. This is why she's been targeting us. And Elise's eyes flashed with determination. Then let's take her down. Nathan, we'll expose her. But we need to be ready. She's not going to stop. And I knew she was right, because this was just the beginning. And I wasn't about to let Karen destroy our lives. So I prepared for the next battle, knowing that the truth would set us free. The viral exposure of Karen Foster's lies had turned Pinecrest Estates into a battleground of public opinion. And I, Nathan Brooks, knew the tension was about to explode because Karen wasn't the type to back down, even with the mounting pressure from the community and the media. So I stayed vigilant, keeping our security cameras on, my senses sharp, and I was right to be cautious. Because that Saturday afternoon, as I was swimming laps in our backyard pool, the sun glinting off the water, my swim trunks clinging to my legs, I heard a commotion at the gate of our property, and I climbed out, water dripping off me, only to see Karen leading a group of HOA members onto our land, her heavy frame swaying as she marched forward, her green blazer straining against her bulk, her face red with fury, and I froze as I saw Elise, who'd been sunbathing by the pool in a sleek black bikini, her toned body glistening with sunscreen, being grabbed by 2 HOA members, their hands gripping her arms as she struggled. And I shouted, "What the hell are you doing? Karen, this is our property. Let her go." And Karen's voice boomed, her double chin quivering as she pointed at me. "Nathan, you're in violation of community standards. Swimming like that in broad daylight. It's indecent. It's affecting the residents. And we're taking Elise into custody until the police arrive." And I felt my blood boil because this was insane. I was on my own legal property wearing swim trunks, and Elise hadn't done anything wrong. But I could see the determination in Karen's eyes, her group of supporters nodding as they held Elise. And I knew this was her desperate attempt to escalate her harassment. So I stepped closer, my voice low. "You're trespassing, Karen, and this is unlawful detention. Let her go now, or you'll regret it." But Karen laughed, her heavy frame shaking. "You don't scare me. Nathan, the HOA has the authority to enforce standards, and your wife's coming with us." And that's when Elise moved, her special forces training kicking in as she twisted her arms free with a swift motion, her movements precise and controlled, and she spun around, grabbing one of the HOA members by the wrist and flipping him onto the ground, her voice a growl. "Don't touch me." And the other member lunged at her, but she sidestepped, grabbing his arm and pinning it behind his back, her bikini-clad form a stark contrast to the intensity of her actions. And I rushed forward, helping her subdue the second man, my voice steady. "Karen, you're done. This is assault, and we're calling the police." But Karen wasn't backing down, her voice shrill. "You're the ones breaking the law. This pool is a public nuisance. You're both a disgrace." And I could see neighbors gathering at the edge of our property, some filming, others shouting in support, the Garcias yelling, "Let her go! Karen, this is wrong!" And I pulled out my phone, dialing 911, my voice urgent. We're at 42 Pinecrest Lane. The HOA president and her group are trespassing and have assaulted my wife. We need officers here now. And as I hung up, Elise kept the two HOA members pinned, her training evident in her calm control. And I turned to Karen, my voice steady. You've crossed a line, Karen. This isn't just harassment anymore. This is a crime. And I could see the fear in her eyes. Her heavy frame trembling as she realized the situation was spiraling out of her control, but she doubled down, shouting, "You'll both be out of Pinecrest by the time I'm done with you." And I knew this was her breaking point, so I kept my camera rolling, capturing every moment, because I knew we'd need the footage. And within minutes, the police arrived, their sirens cutting through the tension as they stepped onto our property. The lead officer, a stern woman, taking one look at the scene and asking, "What's going on here?" And I spoke first, my voice steady. "I'm Nathan Brooks. This is my wife, Elise. We were in our backyard pool on our legal property when Karen Foster and her group trespassed and tried to detain Elise, claiming my swimming was indecent. This is harassment and unlawful detention." And Elise added, her voice firm, "I'm a retired Special Forces operative. I subdued these two to protect myself. They assaulted me." And I saw the officer's eyes narrow as she turned to Karen. "Ms. Foster, is this true?" And Karen stammered, her jowls shaking. "They're breaking community standards. I was enforcing the rules." But the officer wasn't buying it, her voice sharp. "You have no authority to detain anyone. This is private property. You're under arrest for trespassing and unlawful detention." And I watched as Karen was cuffed, her heavy frame slumping as the officers led her away. The two HOA members also detained, and I felt a wave of relief. But I knew this was just the beginning, because we still had to uncover the full truth. And I wasn't going to stop until justice was fully served. The arrest of Karen Foster and her HOA cronies had sent shockwaves through Pinecrest Estates. But I, Nathan Brooks, knew this was only the beginning of our fight for justice. Because while Karen was in custody, the deeper motives behind her relentless harassment of Elise and me were still hidden, and I was determined to uncover the truth. So I stayed focused, working closely with Elise and Aisha, our lawyer, to dig into Karen's actions. My home office now a hub of activity with laptops. Evidence files and security footage scattered across the desk, and the pressure on the remaining HOA board was mounting, because the viral footage of Karen's unlawful detention of Elise, clad in her black bikini, had exploded online. The hashtags #JusticeForElise and #StopKaren trending as the public demanded answers. And I felt a surge of determination when Aisha called me the next morning, her voice brimming with urgency. "Nathan, we've got a major breakthrough." Elise's law enforcement contact traced those wire transfers from Starlight Media. They weren't just payments. They were part of a contract. Starlight paid Karen $15,000 to sabotage Elise's career, with emails showing they wanted her discredited to eliminate competition for their top model. This is a full-on conspiracy. And I felt my heart race because this wasn't just jealousy. This was a calculated plot to ruin Elise's livelihood. And I could see the malice in the emails. One from Karen stating, "Elise Brooks is a threat to your client. I'll make sure she's humiliated. No one in Pinecrest will take her seriously after I'm done." And I knew this was the proof we needed. So I told Aisha, "Get this to the court immediately. In the press, we need the world to see this before Karen can spin it." And Aisha nodded. "I'm on it. I've sent the emails and contract to the judge, and I've got a contact at a national outlet. They're breaking this story tonight." Karen's going down, and I felt a surge of adrenaline because I knew we were closing in. So that evening, the story broke. Pinecrest Estates HOA president took $15,000 bribe to sabotage model's career. The article detailing the contract, the emails, and Starlight Media's scheme to discredit Elise, quoting me directly, "I'm Nathan Brooks. Karen Foster targeted my wife Elise because of her jealousy. But this goes deeper. She took money from Starlight Media to ruin Elise's career. This isn't just harassment, it's a crime. And I watched as the public outrage grew. Social media ablaze with hashtag justice for Elise and hashtag stop Karen. Comments like, "This is disgusting. Arrest her for good." And "Elise is a queen. Karen's just a jealous bully," pouring in. And I knew the pressure was unbearable for Karen, because the next day, I saw neighbors storming the HOA office in a massive protest. The Garcias, Wilsons, and even Mrs. Henderson leading the charge, their signs reading "Expose the truth" and "Karen must pay." And I joined them, my voice booming over the crowd. Karen took $15,000 to sabotage Elise, to push us out. But we're not going anywhere. We're fighting. We're fighting for a Pinecrest where everyone belongs. Who's with me? And the crowd roared, their voices a thunderous wave of defiance. But Karen wasn't done, because that afternoon she made a desperate move from custody. Her lawyer releasing a statement claiming the payments were consulting fees and accusing Elise of fabricating evidence to smear Karen's reputation. And I felt my jaw tighten, because I knew she was trying to save herself. But her words rang hollow, because the evidence was undeniable, and the public wasn't buying it. The comments online tearing her apart. "She's a liar. The emails don't lie. And Karen's done. Support Nathan and Elise." And I knew we were winning, so I kept pushing, working with Elise to gather more evidence. And what we found was shocking, because Elise's contact uncovered a hidden email chain between Karen and a Starlight executive, revealing that Starlight had promised Karen an additional $5,000 bonus if she could get Elise blacklisted from major modeling contracts. And I felt a surge of adrenaline, because this was proof of a broader scheme. So I sent the evidence to Aisha, my voice steady. "We've got more. Starlight offered her a bonus to blackball Elise. This is going to bury her in court." And Aisha's tone was triumphant. "I'm adding this to the countersuit. And the FBI is already moving to investigate Starlight Media. They're facing charges too. We're close." And I felt a wave of hope, because I knew we were close. But I also knew the real battle was coming, because the next day, the preliminary hearing for Karen's charges arrived, the courthouse packed with reporters, residents, and civil rights advocates, the air electric with anticipation as the judge called the case. State Foster, and the prosecutor went first, her voice calm but commanding. "Your Honor, Karen Foster engaged in a conspiracy to harass and defame Elise Brooks, accepting $15,000 from Starlight Media to sabotage her career. We have emails, financial records, and video evidence of her unlawful detention of Miss Brooks. This is a clear case of harassment and conspiracy." And she played the footage of Elise, in her black bikini, subduing the HOA members. Karen's heavy frame visible as she shouted orders, and I saw the courtroom gasp, the judge's eyes narrowing as he turned to Karen's lawyer. "This is a serious accusation. What do you have to say?" And the lawyer stammered, "My client was acting in the interest of the community. Ms. Brooks was a disturbance." But the judge cut him off. "I've seen enough. The evidence is compelling. Ms. Foster will remain in custody pending trial. Bail is denied." And I felt a wave of relief, the courtroom erupting in cheers, the Garcias and Wilsons hugging us as tears streamed down their faces. And I knew we'd won a major battle. But the war wasn't over, because we still had to rebuild Pinecrest, and I was ready to lead that change. By then, Karen Foster's detention had ignited a firestorm in Pinecrest Estates, but Nathan Brooks knew the fight for justice was only heating up, because while Karen was behind bars, the full scope of her conspiracy with Starlight Media was still unraveling. And I was determined to expose every dark corner of this plot, so I stayed relentless, working late into the night with Elise and Aisha, our home office a chaotic hub of evidence files, legal documents, and laptops. The air thick with anticipation, and the pressure on the remaining HOA board members was reaching a breaking point, because the FBI had launched a full-scale investigation into Starlight Media's operations. Their probe now uncovering a chilling network of payments to HOAs across California, targeting minority families with harassment campaigns. And I felt my heart pound when Aisha burst into our living room the next morning, her laptop open, her voice a mix of shock and triumph. "Nathan, Elise, you won't believe this. The FBI just raided Starlight's CEO's home. They found a burner phone with the recorded calls between him and Karen. She wasn't just taking money to sabotage Elise. She was planning to escalate. One call has her saying, 'If the pool stunt doesn't work, we'll plant evidence, make it look like they're dealing drugs.' This is a hate crime and evidence tampering. She's facing new felony charges." And I felt a chill run down my spine because this wasn't just harassment. This was a calculated plot to destroy our lives, and I could hear the venom in Karen's recorded voice, the cold intent to plant evidence. And I knew we had her. So I turned to Elise, her blue eyes blazing with determination, and said, "We've got her. This is the end game. We need to get this out there." And Elise nodded, her voice steady. "Let's make sure the world hears this. Nathan, she's not getting away with this." Well, so Aisha sent the recordings to the court and our press contact, and that evening, the story detonated across every major outlet. Pinecrest Estates HOA president planned to frame model in hate crime conspiracy, the recordings playing on repeat, Karen's voice chilling as she said, "Make it look like they're dealing drugs. They don't belong here." And I watched as the public erupted, social media exploding with #justice for Elise and #stop Karen. Comments like, "She's a criminal. Lock her up for good." And "Nathan and Elise are heroes. End this hate," flooding in. And I knew the pressure was unbearable for Karen because the next day I saw neighbors storming the HOA office in the largest protest yet. The Garcias, Wilsons, and Mrs. Henderson leading a crowd of over 50 residents, their signs reading "Karen's a criminal" and "Dissolve the HOA now." And I joined them, my voice booming over the crowd. Karen took $20,000 to ruin Elise. She planned to frame us with drugs, but we're not going anywhere. We're fighting for a Pinecrest where everyone belongs. Who's with me? And the crowd roared, their voices a thunderous wave of defiance, some even chanting Elise's name. "Elise! Elise!" As she stood beside me, her presence a symbol of strength. But the board members weren't done, because that afternoon they made a desperate move, their lawyer releasing a statement from Karen's jail cell, claiming the recordings were doctored and accusing Elise of using her military background to intimidate the community. And I felt my blood boil, because I knew they were grasping at straws, but their words sparked a flicker of fear in me, because I didn't want Elise's past weaponized against her. So I turned to her, my voice soft. "They're trying to turn this on you. Are you okay?" And Elise's eyes flashed with resolve, her voice firm. "They can try, Nathan, but I've faced worse than Karen in combat. We've got the truth on our side." And I nodded because I knew she was right. And the public wasn't buying the board's lies. The comments online tearing them apart. "She's a liar. The recordings are real. And Elise is a badass. Support her." And I knew we were winning, so I kept pushing, working with Aisha to gather more evidence. And what we found was shocking, because the FBI uncovered a hidden bank account linked to Starlight, showing an additional $5,000 payment to Karen the day after her arrest, a contingency fee to keep pushing, even from jail. And I felt a surge of adrenaline, because this was proof of her ongoing malice. So I sent the evidence to Aisha, my voice steady. "We've got more. Starlight paid her even after she was arrested. They're all in on it. This is going to bury them." And Aisha's tone was electric. "I'm adding this to the countersuit, and the FBI's moving to arrest the other board members. They're facing charges too. We're close." And I felt a wave of hope, because I knew we were close. So I organized another community meeting at the park, my voice carrying over the crowd. Karen planned to frame us. She took money to destroy us. But we're stronger than her hate. We're fighting for justice, for a Pinecrest where everyone belongs. Who's with me? and the crowd cheered, their signs raised high, and I knew we were ready, because this wasn't just about us anymore. It was about justice. For every family in Pinecrest who'd been made to feel less than, and I was going to make sure we won, no matter what came next. The recordings of Karen Foster's chilling plan to frame us had set Pinecrest Estates ablaze with outrage, and I, Nathan Brooks, could feel the momentum building as the community rallied behind us. But I knew this was only the beginning of true justice, because while Karen was in custody, the full extent of her crimes and the network she'd been part of were still being unraveled. So I stayed focused, working closely with Elise and Aisha to ensure our fight didn't lose steam. My home office, a hub of activity with evidence files, legal documents, and laptops, and the pressure on the remaining HOA board members had reached a breaking point because the FBI's investigation into Starlight Media had expanded into a federal sting operation, targeting not just Karen, but the entire network of HOAs and companies involved in these hate-driven schemes. And I felt a surge of determination when Aisha called me that morning, her voice electric with urgency. Nathan, the FBI just arrested Starlight's CEO and 2 more board members from Pinecrest HOA. They've uncovered a ledger detailing payments to over 10 HOAs in California, all targeting minority families. And Karen's charges have been upgraded to include hate crime enhancements. She's looking at up to 25 years. This is a complete takedown. And I felt my heart race, because this wasn't just about us anymore. This was about dismantling a systemic network of racism. So I told Aisha, make sure the court knows, and let's get this to the press. We need the community to see the full victory. And Aisha nodded. I'm on it. I've sent the updates to the judge, and the press is already running with it. The board members are turning on each other to cut deals. And I knew we were close, because that afternoon the news broke. Pinecrest Estates HOA, part of statewide hate crime network, CEO and board members arrested. The story detailing the ledger, the arrests, and Karen's upgraded charges, quoting me directly. I'm Nathan Brooks. Karen Foster tried to destroy my wife Elise and me, but we fought back. This isn't just our victory. It's for every family targeted by this hate. Justice is being served. And I watched as the public celebration grew, social media ablaze with #justice for Elise and #stopKaren. Comments like, this is a win for all of us, shut down the hate, and Nathan and Elise are unstoppable. Heroes. Pouring in, and I knew the tide had turned, because the next day, the remaining board members resigned in a public statement, their lawyer announcing, in light of recent events, the board will dissolve to allow for a fresh start in Pinecrest Estates. But I knew this wasn't just a retreat. It was a surrender. And I felt a wave of relief, because the path was clear to rebuild. So I called a community meeting at the park that evening. The pool in our backyard now a symbol of what we'd overcome. My voice carrying over the crowd of over 200 residents. Karen and her allies took money to target us, to tear us apart. But they've been arrested. The HOA's been dissolved, and now it's our turn to rebuild. We need a Pinecrest where everyone belongs, where no one lives in fear. I'm calling for a new election, a new board. Who's with me? And the crowd roared, their signs raised high, the Garcias, Wilsons, and Mrs. Henderson stepping forward to volunteer, Mrs. Henderson's voice trembling. I was wrong, Nathan, Elise, I see it now. I'm with you, let's make this right. And I felt a surge of hope, because this was the unity I'd been fighting for. So we held the election that week, a diverse board now including me, Mrs. Garcia, Mr. Wilson, and a few others, and we got to work, rewriting the rules to ban discrimination, ensuring a transparency, and using the damages from our lawsuit to fund community projects, starting with a renovation of the park, adding a community garden, a playground, and a space for outdoor fitness classes. And we didn't stop there. We turned our backyard pool into a community asset, hosting free swim days for all families, with Elise leading water safety workshops. Her military precision, a perfect fit for teaching. And I watched as Pinecrest came together. The once divided streets now filled with laughter. Black kids, Latino kids, white kids splashing together. Their parents sharing stories at the potlucks we held every month. And I saw Mrs. Henderson there helping set up chairs, her voice soft. Nathan, Elise, you changed everything. I'm so sorry I didn't see it sooner. And I smiled, because those moments were the real victory, not just the arrests or the lawsuit, but the way Pinecrest had become a place where everyone belonged. And I knew the fight wasn't over, because racism doesn't die with one case. But I also knew we'd laid a foundation, one that could withstand whatever came next. So I kept pushing, using our platform to advocate for fair community policies across California, speaking at city council meetings, my voice steady. Pinecrest Estates is proof that we can fight back, that we can build communities where everyone belongs, and we need to keep fighting for that, everywhere. And our story spread, inspiring other neighborhoods to stand up, to demand change. And I got letters from people I'd never met, families of all backgrounds saying, "You gave us hope," and I kept everyone. A reminder of why we'd fought. And as for Karen, her trial ended with a conviction for conspiracy, hate crimes, and evidence tampering. Her sentence set at 22 years, while Starlight's CEO faced his own charges, dismantling a network of hate that had targeted communities for years. And I knew we'd won more than a battle. We'd started a movement. Lastly, with Karen Foster and her allies behind bars, Pinecrest Estates felt like a neighborhood stepping into a new dawn. And I, Nathan Brooks, stood at the forefront of that transformation alongside Elise, not as victors seeking glory, but as neighbors committed to building a community where everyone could thrive without fear. So we threw ourselves into the work, starting with the new HOA board, a diverse group that now included me, Mrs. Garcia, Mr. Wilson, and several other residents who'd rallied behind our cause. And we met every week at the community center we'd established. Our voices united as we drafted bylaws that banned discrimination, ensured transparency in every decision, and prioritized projects that brought us together, like transforming the park into a vibrant space with a community garden, a playground, and a space for outdoor fitness classes. And we used the remaining damages from our lawsuit to fund initiatives that had been neglected for years, installing accessible pathways for seniors, starting a youth arts program, and launching a neighborhood watch program focused on inclusion, not exclusion. And I watched as Pinecrest transformed. The once divided streets now filled with laughter. Black kids, Latino kids, white kids painting murals together, their parents sharing stories at the fitness classes we held every weekend. And I felt a swell of pride from, because this was what we'd fought for, a place where Elise and I could live openly, where no one had to live in fear of harassment or unlawful detention. But I also knew change wasn't easy, because some residents, like Mr. Thompson, a longtime friend of Karen's, still clung to their prejudices, his voice sharp at one of our meetings. "I don't see why we need all these changes. Things were fine before. Now it's all so chaotic." And I knew what he meant by chaotic. He meant the diversity, the inclusivity, the fact that Pinecrest wasn't his exclusive little enclave anymore. But I didn't let his words stop me. Instead, I invited him to the garden's opening day, hoping to show him what we'd built. And to my surprise, he showed up, his face tight with discomfort at first. But when a group of kids, including the Garcias' son Miguel, asked him to help plant a row of sunflowers, his expression softened, and he muttered, "Maybe this isn't so bad." And I knew change was slow, but it was happening. And we kept pushing, organizing events to bring the neighborhood together, like a monthly Pinecrest Unity Day, where families participated in activities like mural painting and community cleanups. The Garcias teaching salsa dancing, the Wilsons leading a yoga session, and we shared meals afterward. Miss Henderson bringing her famous apple pie, her voice soft as she said, "Nathan, Elise, I never thought I'd see this. I was so wrong about you, about all of us. And I smiled, because those moments were the real victory, not just the garden or the new rules, but the breaking down of walls in people's hearts. And we didn't stop there. Elise proposed using the community center to host self-defense workshops, drawing on her special forces experience to teach residents, especially women and children, how to protect themselves. And I watched as confidence grew. Even Mr. Thompson joining a session, his voice soft as he told Elise, "I didn't understand before, but I do now, thank you." And I knew we were building more than a community space. We were building a future, so we kept pushing, using our platform to fund scholarships for the kids in our arts program, giving them a chance to attend creative workshops and internships. Kids like Miguel Garcia, who told me he wanted to be an artist, his eyes bright with determination, and I felt a surge of hope. Because this was the legacy we wanted to leave. But I also knew the past wasn't entirely gone, because I heard whispers that some of Karen's old allies were trying to regroup, meeting in secret to restore the old HOA. And I saw a few anonymous flyers pop up around the neighborhood, claiming the new board was too progressive and destroying tradition. And I felt a pang of frustration, because even after everything, they were still trying to tear us apart. So I called a board meeting, my voice firm. We can't let them sabotage what we built. We need to show the neighborhood we're stronger than their lies. Let's organize a Pinecrest Harmony Festival, celebrate everything that makes us special, and invite everyone. And the board agreed, setting the date for the following weekend, and the festival was a success. The park packed with families, music filling the air, kids performing in the amphitheater, their skits about unity echoing as parents swapped stories over lemonade. And I saw Mr. Thompson there, helping set up an art booth, his smile genuine as he chatted with Mrs. Garcia about her son's mural project. And I knew we were winning, but I also knew the fight wasn't over, because as the festival wound down, I got a call from Aisha, her voice tense. "Nathan, some of Karen's old allies are trying to file a new lawsuit to reinstate the old board. They're claiming the election was influenced by outside agitators, and they're working with what's left of Starlight's legal team. We need to be ready." And I felt my stomach drop, because I knew what that meant. They were still trying to push us out, but I also knew I had the community behind me now. And as I looked out at the festival, at the faces of the neighbors who'd become our family, I said, "We'll fight them, Aisha. We've come too far to lose this now." And I knew we'd win, because Pinecrest Estates wasn't just a neighborhood anymore. It was a movement, and we'd never stop fighting for it, no matter what came next. Yet a year had passed since the dramatic showdown by our pool, where Elise had taken down Karen Foster and her cronies, and as I, Nathan Brooks, stood in the Pinecrest Estates community garden during the third annual Harmony Festival, watching the sun set over families laughing and dancing, I felt a profound sense of peace, because the neighborhood we'd fought for had become a true beacon of unity, where kids of every race planted seeds together, their giggles blending with the music. And I could see the changes we'd made. The garden now a vibrant heart of the community, with its playground, outdoor fitness area, an amphitheater hosting skits about inclusion, a far cry from the days of Karen Foster's reign, when she tried to ruin us with her jealousy-driven harassment. And I knew this was the legacy we'd built, not just for ourselves, but for every family who'd ever felt out of place here. So we poured our energy into ensuring that legacy endured, working with the new HOA board to secure grants for more community projects, building an art studio within the community center, a place where kids could explore their creativity, and we expanded the scholarship fund, helping more kids attend workshops and internships. Kids like Miguel Garcia, who just had his first art exhibit at a local gallery, his mom hugging me with tears in her eyes. "Nathan, Elise, you gave him a future. I'll never forget that." And I smiled, because that was why we'd fought, for the future, not just for our community, but for every child who deserved a chance. And we didn't stop there. Elise turned the community center into a hub for empowerment, hosting self-defense workshops that drew on her special forces experience, teaching residents, especially the women and children, how to protect themselves. And I watched as confidence bloomed. Even Mr. Thompson, who'd once resisted change, now a regular at the workshops, his voice soft as he told Elise, "I didn't understand before, but I do now. Thank you for showing me strength isn't about hate." And I felt a lump in my throat, because those moments were the real victory, not just the art studio or the new rules, but the way Pinecrest had become a place where people truly saw each other. And we held the Harmony Festival to celebrate. The park packed with families, music filling the air. Kids performing skits about unity on the amphitheater stage, their voices echoing as parents swapped stories over lemonade. And I watched as families who'd once lived in fear of harassment now danced together under the stars. Miguel Garcia and the Wilson kids racing through the crowd, their laughter a reminder of what we'd achieved. But I also knew the fight wasn't over, because prejudice doesn't disappear overnight. And I heard whispers of new residents moving in, some bringing old biases with them. But I also saw hope in the way the kids painted murals without fear, in the way Mrs. Henderson now led the fitness classes, her smile genuine as she said, "Nathan, Elise, you taught me how to be better. I'm so grateful." And I knew those small acts of change were the foundation of something bigger. So we kept pushing, using our platform to advocate for community equity across California. Speaking at city council meetings, my voice steady as I told our story. Pinecrest Estates is proof that we can fight back, that we can build communities where everyone belongs, where diversity is celebrated, and we need to keep fighting for that everywhere. And our story spread, inspiring other neighborhoods to stand up, to demand change. And I got letters from people I'd never met, families of all backgrounds saying, "You gave us hope." And I kept everyone a reminder of why we'd fought. And as for Karen and her allies, their final lawsuit to reinstate the old board failed, the court dismissing their hair claims as baseless. And Karen's federal trial ended with a conviction for conspiracy, hate crimes, and evidence tampering. Her sentence set at 22 years, while Starlight Media's CEO faced his own charges, dismantling a network of hate that had targeted communities for years. And Karen's house was sold to a young interracial couple with 2 kids. And I saw neighbors help them unpack. A sight that made my heart swell, because this was the Pinecrest I'd always wanted, a place where no one was pushed out, where inclusivity was the norm. And on the anniversary of the pool incident, we held a ceremony in the garden, unveiling a plaque that read, "In honor of Nathan and Elise Brooks, who fought hate with courage and built a home for all." And I stood at the podium, my voice steady. A year ago, we were attacked in our own backyard. But today, we stand here united, a symbol of what's possible when we fight for justice. Pinecrest isn't perfect, but it's ours, and we'll keep making it better. Together, and the crowd cheered, Miguel Garcia running up to hug us, his smile brighter than the sun. And as I looked out at the faces, Black, Latino, white, all part of this new Pinecrest, I thought about Karen, now a footnote in our history, her dreams of division shattered. And I didn't feel vindictive. I felt at peace, because the real victory wasn't in her downfall. It was in the thriving community she'd tried to destroy. And as the festival wound down, I sat with Elise, her hand in mine, her voice soft. "Nathan, we did this. We showed them what we're made of." And I smiled because I knew she was right. But I also knew it wasn't just us. It was all of us, fighting together. And as I watched the last of the sunset fade, I knew Pinecrest Estates would never be the same. And neither would we. Because this fight had taught us that true change starts with standing up, with refusing to be silenced. And we'd never stop standing up for our community, for a world where everyone belongs. Nathan and Elise exposed Karen's plot, fought back, and united Pinecrest Estates for equality. Thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe if you love this story. Hit the bell for our latest videos on HOA dramas and community triumphs. You won't want to miss what's next.